in the wonderful talk a bit earlier. But this time we will discuss a little bit more about his research career. And thanks, Gabriel, first to participate to this Meet the PI. It's very nice of you.
Thank you.
And if I had to start our discussion, like I was watching your bio, and I was seeing that actually you have an interesting profile because you started in Uruguay, then you went to France, and then you came back to Uruguay again. Um, and like I was wondering if you could explain us what is actually the genesis of your love for science, like how it came for you, this idea that you want to do that, and why going to France at some point. Yeah, if you can make a short summary, basically of your academic journey.
Okay. Well, it all began when I finished my secondary studies, or were about to finish my secondary studies. And because of I had some friends that were going to into that, I became to prepare the step previous to going to the university, thinking about an engineering career. And when I had become to take courses on these preparatory steps, I found that I had found that if I was never too much trouble with mathematics, I find them a little boring. So, and as my father was a medical doctor, and I have been always around with books on medicine and natural history, etc., etc. I have become to how can I say it? Search in the university system in Uruguay as until I found that there was a degree in biological sciences that I didn't know they exist. So when I went out of my secondary studies, I entered in the university at this degree. That is a license degree, as it's called here. So there are 4 years of studies. And I made this 4 years, and I then applied to how can you say it? How do you say that in English? Bourse.
Grant.
A grant for a foundation in France, a private foundation in France that allowed people to have some money and to go do studies in France. And I went there for a year, a little more than a year, to do my master's degree. And then staying there, I had made some friends in France and related to the scientific systems in France. And I worked with when I was finishing my degree, I have made a work on research working in behavior on lab wings. You know what that is? On the territories and the relationship between them in a non-reproductive context. And then when I was going to France, I thought to continue with lab wings, but my chief there, my patron, as they said in France, put me out to work with chickens. So I continue with with birds, but not the birds I have in mind. And I made, they have a little group of chickens with three males and four females. And I did some kind of social organization study for this group. And these animals live freely this was in a laboratory in the Cher in France, uh, uh, a field station, we can say that, and lodgement for the students also. And these animals were moving around this station completely freely, excepting at the night when they entered in cages. There was a battery of rabbit cages that used these animals to go through the night, because there were many foxes, etc., in the area, and if they eat by subjects, I couldn't then done my studies. So um, I began to study their behavior as groups, were assessing dominance, etc., and between males and between females, and made a more detailed study on how they housed at night in those different spaces they have, and how this could reflect their dominance and relationships in the group during the day. So who sleep with whom, and how this was related with the structure of the group during the day. And as a part of this study, I began recording the sounds emitted by the males mostly, and I could identify the three males by hearing them, no need or to see them. So at that point, I began to interest me in the bioacoustics study or animal vocalization studies. So when I finished my degree there, before coming to Uruguay, I have made a proposal to the university, that was Sorbonne, to make a doctorate a PhD, using or studying parrots here in South America, from the point of view of their communication, their sounds, etc. But when I arrived in South America, that I've been in France in 1983 and 1984, and when arriving in South America, I know that there was an Argentinian colleague that was working on that same subject in Argentina, so I had to change my subject, and at that time I saw that there was this animals, the tuco-tucos, the subterranean rodents, that were recognized by people, and that the cause of their popular name, tuco-tuco, because of their vocalizations. And there are many groups in Uruguay and Argentina and Brazil and other parts that were studying different species of tuco-tucos, but none of them were studying much behavior, and none of them were studying their vocalizations. So I decided to route my doctoral studies to try to understand the vocalizations of the tuco-tucos. And that was a decision I have taken because I have much support about the biology of these animals from the other groups that were working on them. And also because in the 50s, some professors of my university studied in studied the vocalizations of the tuco-tucos, but they concluded that there was no significance, there were no biological significance for them. So that was a conclusion I couldn't accept, because these animals, put so much energy in vocalizing to be heard from many meters away from the inside their burrows, that I think to myself, this cannot be possible, that this has no significance. And so I adopted that subject for my doctoral studies. Doctoral studies that I did in Uruguay, because I was intended to go back to France with a grant that I have had from the government of France. I will I have programmed my return to the year 86, 87, and then the French government, cut off all the grants, so I couldn't go back, and adopted this subject and try to find some support in the post-degree system in Uruguay that was beginning to develop in that years, because we had no doctorates, etc., in biology before that time. And then, after developing my ideas, I presented a project and for the doctorate studies, and it was accepted. So I at the beginning of the 90s, I began with my studies for my doctoral thesis on the vocal communication in subterranean rodents in Tenomys personi, that is the species I most studied.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, like I mean, so clearly, like you raise a point that is important, is that like you manage to find funding at the good moment, let's say,
yeah.
of your career. But like, because when we are discussing with people from South America, usually in this type of discussion, they often told us about how difficult it is to find to raise funding in South America. Like, do you? I mean, do you have the feeling that it's worst over time in South America right now? And if yes, like, do you manage, for instance, to compensate this by creating a collaboration with other team in other countries, or to try to bypass these limitations?
I cannot say, I cannot talk about all South America, because there are different,
Yeah, of course.
obviously, different situations. In Uruguay, this has been improving from many years to now, to the present. But I know that it's still very difficult for many students to, support themselves while they are going into their master's or doctoral works or thesis. And the the alternative, that being in contact with groups in other places, is a viable one. But I think that many students want to also go outside for their master's or the doctoral degree, at least for some period, to experience directly the work with other peoples that maybe have other media, or have other ways of working some different problems. But the contact with other and is a good alternative. And there are some scientific societies that are trying to contact the student and his or her tutor in Uruguay, in example, with other scholars outside, that can be some kind of accessory or tutor that gives them some aid and in methods, bibliography, etc., to try to fill the gap, so say, that the students that cannot go outside to do his studies. But there are many people in different disciplines that now in Uruguay that do this her or his studies in doctoral degrees or master degrees here in the country, and they manage to have grants that support them through almost all the process.
Yeah,
They are not they are not sufficient, but for all the candidates, but they're a group that is important in number that can do that.
yeah, it was my next question actually. Like, how is the current situation in Uruguay regarding this? Like, if it's important for getting a position, for instance, in Uruguay to have experience a lot in other countries, because I mean, for instance, I'm speaking as a French.
Mm-hmm.
In France, it's pretty much like a must-have. Like, you cannot stay in France; you have to leave if you want to come back one day. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
is it the same thing in Uruguay, or is it still possible to make your full career in Uruguay?
Um, it's a difficult question, but I think that you can do that all your career here in Uruguay. But and it's right that you don't. It's not so a condition to get a position in the university or in some research institution to have been outside the country doing research, etc. But it's a valuable item when you are, trying to the position. Um, you have, and at this time and from some years before, it's usual here in Uruguay that for you to get a position the mid-career in the university, you have to have a doctorate.
Yeah.
And here in the country or outside, but you have to have it because if not, you don't have so many possibilities of getting your position. And at the time when I was beginning, that was not so the case because there were people. Some of them were my teachers that they didn't have a doctoral degree because in Uruguay you couldn't have it and they couldn't go outside, and then even they have the positions of the most high positions in the university without having a doctorate. Now that's almost impossible at this time.
Thanks. We got a question in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
I would not be able to say the name, sadly, but so like it's how do the student get it in touch with the sponsorship that you said outside of Paraguay of Uruguay? Sorry.
Sorry, can you?
How do the students get in touch with the sponsorships that you were talking before outside of Uruguay?
Well, usually you have some people because of the subjects you have been uh, working on, or by some of your tutors or your uh, of the people that are at the head of the lab you are working knows some people or colleagues in the outside Uruguay, and they make you contact them. That's the usual process, I think.
So maybe like to jump on another part of the research life.
Mm-hmm.
We know that, I mean, like now you start to have a quite long career. Like, did you have any moment of doubt during this career? Did you at some point hesitated to maybe switch for another thing and another job? And if yes, what made you stay? What kind of like how did you deal with this mood? Because we know that a lot of young researchers are meeting this
Mm-hmm.
situation nowadays. So it will be interesting to hear from
Okay.
your perspective.
Well, I must say no. uh, I have to explain this. When I began my career, there were not much people doing biology in Uruguay. There were not much places also to do biology in Uruguay, but that was being improving during the years. But if you dedicate or plan to dedicate your life to study biology in Uruguay, you have been you were seen like some sort of dilettante or something like that, and and but after some years, it has beginning to become, you know, I'm not saying a hot field of research or work, but it was improving in the interests of the young people, and mostly during and after the pandemics, because of the visibility that have the many Uruguayan researchers through the pandemics, even at an international level. So there are many people now that uh, try to do a career in biology, and the problem is the definition of their in the areas or in the disciplines of biology they want to work with. As you may know or suppose, after the pandemics and during the pandemics, the increase in interest has been uh, along with the increase of interest in students to work in molecular biology, immunology, etc., etc. So zoology and other near disciplines like animal behavior, etc., are not so hot these days. But there still are groups of students that are interested in zoology and animal behavior, ecology, etc. So you are probably are more able to get some funding if you work on molecular biologies, etc., than in the zoology part of the biology. But there are still positions and grants to help many people. And I never thought of doing other thing. When I was a student at the degree stage, when I entered the university, I thought on three things that interested me a priori. So genetics, and when I had my genetic courses, I discarded it because at that time there wasn't evenly there wasn't uh, molecular biology. There was classical genetics, alleles, etc., and that not interesting so much to me. Paleontology, because I was interested in dinosaurs, etc. Like every child in the world, I think has you know a part of his life where is interested in that, and I discarded that when I passed to the courses of paleontology and animal behavior. And when I coursed animal behavior in my license studies, even if the course was not very updated, I began to read things on the side and contact the literature on scientific magazines like behavior, animal behavior, etc. And I convinced myself that was the discipline that was the the one that I wanted to develop my activity in. So after I have taken that decision, I never stopped. And even if I had some periods that I couldn't get grants to develop my studies uh, or my projects, well, I never uh, went down because I had always some other activities related to my projects on the tuco that I could be made with less funds than others. So I went for that kind of projects and not the others.
No, you can go for your
Yeah,
question.
I have a question for you. I was
Yeah.
thinking, because when I started my not my PhD, but my university course in animal behavior, it was 10, well, not 10 years ago, sorry, 20 years ago. Time is going fast. So there were only two university giving course in animal behavior. And now we have lots of, I think nearly all the university in France, they are giving course in animal behavior. And do you think maybe it's because the university in Uruguay, maybe there is not so many, not enough teaching in animal behaviors, so that it can explain why you don't have so many students interested in animal behavior?
You have to understand how is the system here in Uruguay. In Uruguay, we have one university that is of the state, is the Universidad de la República,
okay,
that had a college or faculty in sciences, and there is biological sciences teaching, and inside this biological sciences courses teachings, there is a course that is named ethology. Okay, that's the coursing I work still today. There are other private universities, but in those universities, normally there are not courses on biology or something like that. The majority of courses are on disciplines that do not demand labs, etc., like economics, law, etc., etc. So, and I think that the animal behavior was not a subject that was very, popular in your school and medium, teachings when you were more young before entering the university. So they have no much propaganda. But this kind of thing have been changing in the years past, and there are more activities. There are some by research institutions in biology that have people that do animal behavior also, and they interact with, primary schools and medium schools, etc., etc. And we from the university also. So there has been a popularization, for saying that expression, of the studies in animal behavior, and that many people has understood that to talk about animal behavior and to do some things on animal behavior, you don't have to be a veterinarian or a psychologist. Yeah. You could be a biologist.
Yeah. Future students are coming. They are just too young for now, but they are coming.
Sorry?
The future students, they are coming. They are just too young now, maybe, but they are coming. They are now. They will soon join the university.
Yeah. There are some students that come to work with us in our laboratory, or work with that is research institution, is el Instituto de Investigaciones Biológicas Clemente Estable, that has a part of the, it's a long name, that has also people that works on animal behavior. So they don't do teach, but they do research. Some people that wants to do their final work in the license of biology go to them, because they work mostly with spiders, etc., etc., and they are very, very, powerful in that subjects. And the general zoologists also have a part of them that study behavior in the Faculty of Sciences. So many students come to the animal behavior studies in general including some psychology studies students, and they are understanding why this kind of studies are important to know more about our fauna and the behavior of animals, wild animals and also domestic animals.
Well, I actually liked. Yeah, sorry, Abby, go ahead.
No, I was just saying these things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 It's difficult, yeah. Now it's improving a little, but I think that always is a problem, major problem for people that has not English as a first language, because you have to habituate to use some kind of expressions, etc., etc. And I have an anecdote from my first paper that was published in 1999 in an international journal, the Acoustics Journal, that I have sent in. I wrote the manuscript in English. I have the English revised by people, colleagues that have been working and living in the States for many years. And when I send the paper in, they come again with some reviews, etc., and they say, please make the language be reviewed for a Native American. And I was tempted to say to them, how, what Native American? An Apache? Because that's the only Native Americans I know. But I didn't, because I suppose that I will be not published again in that journal. But the problem is, I think that some years ago, because when I was a student, still a student, there were many journals in animal behavior, like Animal Behavior and mostly Behavior, that published in English, in French, in Spanish, in Italian. So you have to put an English resume or abstract, but you have the possibility to express in your own language and to be, performant in your language and not be under the problems of having to express in another language. That I have still some problems on that. If you saw my presentation today, you should notice that that I have some problems still now, mostly when I have to talk in fright, in rapidly. But during some years when my career was developing, those kinds of practices and about publishing were going down. So now you have to, that's that old phrase that said publish or perish is publish in English or perish. And I think this is an important drawback for people that doesn't come from English speaking countries. And sometimes that status makes that some people or some researchers that are from those countries ignore publications on the subject of their works that was made in other languages that they do not know and they do not want to learn. So I think that this development into only English has been not very well for us people like don't come from English speaking
But I was
countries.
about to say, like, do you have the feeling that maybe over the last years, maybe the journal improved a bit by proposing at least service of translation or service of editing for free? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't really know because as for now, I never saw, but it's an actual question. Like, did you see this appearing more and more in the journal you were submitting, or not at all?
I've seen this in some journals. I never use it up to this time, but I think it could be a path into the right direction. But it's the same when you are like here or in a conference. This is more uncontracted, but the contractee. But you engage in a discussion during a presentation, in example, and at least for me, it's difficult to express very well my ideas when I have so little time to do it, and I'm pressing for doing it in the moment, and that continues to be an impairment for I think
we completely
because
agree.
not all the people has the possibilities of study English and practice it all the time at a level that make the people be performant in those cases.
Yeah, but I agree, and like for instance, like something that I think ultimately we would love to be able to do in ABL, it's actually to propose someone to translate, for instance, or to find some tools in order to make a direct a live translation of the talks, because like this it will make people so much more comfortable, and as you say, will be able to just express their idea exactly like they want to express it. Even though funny enough, like I would say that it's a discussion I had with a friend recently. I'm not able to talk about science in French anymore. It means that English kind of, like, the problem is that now, because we are coming in a generation that we kind of we grow into this science in English, we kind of lose completely our native vocabulary of science. And I know that each time that I am in a position that I have to discuss science in French, it's actually I'm speaking worse than in English. So like it's kind of now it's hard because we kind of install something, so it means that we'll have to learn in the opposite. But yeah, Laure, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was just thinking that the language is going to be less and less a problem with the technology coming, with the artificial intelligence coming and things like this. I think it will be less and less a problem, because I know that some of my colleagues, they are already using something like the application called DeepL.
DeepL, yeah. I'm using this too for correcting. Indeed, it's quite efficient.
I think not now it's still a problem, but I think in the coming years it's going to be less and less a problem, because we will be able, I think, to ask artificial intelligence to translate our paper. Like you write your paper in your language and then you ask, can you translate this in English?
I mean,
can I interject something?
Oh, for sure. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think Google Translator is
Google is not
going better. It's going
good.
better for the texts, but the problem is when you talk. For me, at least, and in congresses, sometimes I joke with my friends, and I said that congresses should be organized not by subject or the presentations, but by the original language the presenter has. Because when you adapt your ear to understand, say, German speaking English, they came at Japanese, and you have to change your ways of understand, and it takes time. Yeah. So you are in the middle of into the presentation when you began to understand clearly what or more or less clearly what the man or the girl is saying, and then it changes again, etc., etc. So it's a kind of internal joke that I made, but there is some problems about at that level. Yeah. And it's incredible, but you know, I used to go. I have some years now that I didn't go, but I used to go to a Brazilian Congress in animal behavior, and they had their presentations, and you can present in Portuguese or in Spanish that almost all the people understand, or you can present in English. But for their students that came to see the presentations, they had a translator that translate English into Portuguese. And as I think it to myself, well, in Uruguay that never occurs, and in the international congresses that never occurs. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's feasible, but you know.
I will say it will be, I mean, like it's what I was about to say is that, Laure, you were talking about artificial intelligence, but the truth is that there will be some more human solution in which like we are actually using actual translator to make the job. And like, I would say that after here we will enter in something a bit more deep, because I think the economic system of the international conference and the economic system of the publication nowadays could certainly cover this kind of cost actually. Because like, for instance, let's say if you were taking an international conference that is in person, in which you are paying 500 euros to participate, if let's say you were paying a little bit less, but that you were making everything online, then you don't have to pay for renting a space and to make a buffet and to go drink. And at the end, you can pay actually something that is way more useful, which is someone translating. So like, I think it's also more coming with our way that we are organizing things. Like maybe we don't need technology here. We just need to reorganize the way we are using the resources, let's say. It's more, but I will maybe not go that deep inside this discussion because
yeah, no, I had to add that I want to add that is really true that you were saying, but the other problem that presents again is that if you don't go to the international conference, you couldn't meet your friends face to face. And that for me is a very important point, that you can exchange opinions, talk in the, you know, in the, not in the sessions, but outside the sessions with many people. And I think that the problem could be solved in part, that if the language problem, if we came back to the, maybe I'm very old here, but you came back to the times when you could publish in your language and the other people could read or could know or understand the language you are writing or presenting in, or looking at the abstract in English if you want, or make I had to do it, make the paper translated from someone to your. I have from part of my research in Tucutucos, I have to make translations of people making translations for me from Russian. So I know how the problem is, but I think that the problem could be more evenly distributed, if I know what I mean.
But so maybe actually you say something that is interesting and sorry, go ahead. Yeah, if you want to jump on.
I guess I just wanted to add to that point. So in my PhD, I worked on the waggle dance behavior, and a lot of the background on that is from like Carl von Frisch and all these German researchers working on it. So all the original literature is in German, and there were instances where I had to refer to it, and I must say that I mean I exclusively use Google Translate at that point. I think even DeepL was not so active or so used, and I mean it worked. It's definitely possible that at this point in time you can actually, even if you don't get the exact nuance of what they're writing, you can actually get what they're trying to say and see how that fits in with your data, how that fits in with your whatever you're thinking of. And I guess then the question is only of, if we have the tools already available, then I mean, what is stopping us, right? It's just a matter of having some sort of momentum going to establish something, like you said, that you can publish in whatever language you are most comfortable with, and you can have automated translations even on websites where journals are now only websites. Like there's more journals coming out that are only web only and no print edition, so you can have automated translations, and I think that's where we should be moving forward to.
Yeah. I wanted, so I think it would be the last question, and it's to jump in on something that you said just before. You say that for you, you need to see in face-to-face people. So does it mean that the solution of a virtual conference so far did not really convince you regarding, like, I mean, it convinced you maybe in terms of science, but not in terms of networking?
It's not. I think it's not a problem of a duality, you know, opposing things. I think that they are complementary. But from time to time, I must say that I value and I suffer in EMS. I suffered this during the pandemics. I value the contact face to face, because you can discuss many things and talk to your friends not only about scientific issues, but sometimes this is important to develop, partnerships or exchange of information or point of view, or have your point of view criticized by someone that is your friend but is still criticizes in a good way, and tells you, well, you must go by this way, or strongly appoint this, this informations and not others, etc., etc. And I think that is better if you make it in person. But I cannot disregard this type of contact that is, as you said, is more less costly and helps to contact many people that eventually couldn't go to the conferences in person. So maybe, I don't know what future holds. Maybe there's a hybrid format, or I don't know. Maybe with the virtual reality, we can stay in person and not stay in person at the same time. I don't know, but that is for the mathematicians and physics to tell, I think.
Yeah, no, but it's interesting to hear. It's more because, like, I think it's a constant internal debate, this thing that if the networking needs to see the person in real life, and I think you will never really find anyone who agree about it, because like even within ABL we do not agree about it, I guess, because we don't all have the same need for a meeting. But that's why I was asking you more to. It's interesting to have the opinion about this. So like we will arrive at the end of this session. So I will go for our little rapid fire questions if you're good with it. So I ask you the question and you reply. So like, what's your favorite model species?
Tiramis pearsoni, Tugo.
Of course.
Okay. I mean, like, we could have a surprise and you go back to crow out of the blue.
It's not surprising.
So like, what's your favorite field site?
Field site?
Yeah.
Oh, well, my favorite field site is here in Uruguay because these animals live on the southern coast of the country, so I couldn't get them in other places. So that's
fair. That's fair. If you had to choose, what would be your favorite part in your daily PI routine?
In my daily what? Sorry?
In your daily PI routine.
PI routine.
Yeah.
What's a PI?
Like, I guess it depends on you. Like, it's your own routine. Like, what are you doing as a professor in your university daily?
I think that the most enjoyable part of my routine is when I could sit in a tranquil place and read all the things I want to read without interventions of any people, sound, etc.
Animals.
No, animals I'll tolerate. Yeah, depending on the animal, but there is the problem that how I'm expanding a bit, but I as I work in a lab, I had some responsibilities of managing also the lab. You have many non-scientific tasks that I can't say I hate to do, but almost.
We can imagine. But it's actually a perfect transition. So like, what will be the favorite journal for reading papers?
Yeah.
There are many of them, but probably must be animal behavior.
Okay. Do you have one paper that inspired you recently?
I have some, but it depends on the subject. I've read some papers about biosemiotics. That is a subject I'm entering now, and that inspires me on how to interpret communication and behavior, even from the point of view of, like a conversation or communication between two subjects, and in which you interpret what the other is saying or behaving like, and that feedbacks on your understanding of the situation, so you can interpret the behavior of an animal or their communications using these types of paradigms from a Peircean point of view.
Okay. Actually, you can put the reference inside your channel on Discord and share with people. And we'll finish with this one. So one thing that you would prioritize to change in academia?
There's a tough one. I think that we have been talking about that the publication system and the problems with languages, etc., and the access to publications. And in the scientific systems in general, but also for my country in particular, is that the value the judges of your work put in where do you publish, and not what the contents of your publishing are.
Yeah, I have the thing that visits pretty much everywhere. But thanks a lot, Gabriel. That was a really interesting discussion. We hope that you enjoyed the conference and that you will enjoy also the rest of the conference.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I have to thank you all of you for asking me to do this and
That was our
for
pleasure.
a nice chat here.
Thanks a lot.
And I would like to ask you to put on Discord also a picture of your field site.
Okay.
I want to see the view you talked about.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Gabriel.
Bye.
Well, thank you.
Have a good day.
Have a good day.
Bye. So now we will have a break, like I would say pretty much 1 hour before the start of the second workshop of the day, during we will talk about Boris. So like just go grab some snack and some drink and enjoy a little bit of rest before to start the end of this day. See you later.
See you.